Welcome back to Inside Games, the only gaming news channel brave enough to actually look at Elden Ring discourse on the internet.
Ain't no course like discourse, Bruce. I've been waiting all week to say that. Elden Ring launched critical and popular acclaim, which of course means that there are both players and developers who are just so over it and can't wait to tell you why it's overrated.
God bless the internet, filled with videos of high-powered industrial mixers. You've been watching those videos again, Lawrence?
3D animations of mixers doing what they do best really just makes me feel good.
Industrial mixers and people that can't wait to be angry about video games. How can people be angry when the PerMix PTP series paddle type mixer is out there mixing its goddamn heart out? We'll never know.
Maybe it's because Elden Ring has sold really well, seemingly defying all conventional wisdom that difficult, obscure, and weird games don't break into mass market sales.
This is unprecedented, really. Elden Ring publisher Bandai Namco announced via a press release on March 16th that the game has sold 12 million units worldwide in the 3 weeks since its launch. That's a lot. That's a lot. That word doesn't really do it justice. It's too short. At 12 million, Elden Ring is already in an entirely different class sales-wise than any of From Software's previous games, and most video games in general.
If you look at the numbers, From Software's previous top-selling title was Dark Souls 3, but that only hit 10 million sales as of May 2020, a full 4 years after launch. Elden Ring has beaten that in 3 weeks.
To find comparable numbers, you have to start comparing some of gaming's biggest sellers of all time. Ars Technica's Kyle Orland did that homework already, thank you Kyle, finding that based on this single data point, Elden Ring sales are on par with Red Dead Redemption 2, Grand Theft Auto 5, and yes, our favorite game, Cyberpunk 2077. That also means that adjusted by data release, Elden Ring is outselling Grand Theft Auto 4, The Witcher 3, and Zelda Breath of the Wild.
GamesIndustry.biz also provides a few more relative points of data. Elden Ring is the biggest new IP launch in Europe since 2016's The Division, and the biggest game launch in general since last November's Call of Duty Vanguard.
Unsurprisingly, all these little dollar signs mean we've got a hot new franchise on our hands. Perhaps. It gets a little weird, but many websites are quoting the press release saying that in a joint message, Elden Ring is described as a new franchise. However, that quote doesn't appear in any press release we could find.
You can bet your ass this is turning into a franchise. It sold 12 million copies. The press release is hosted on From Software's website. So did From Software and Bandai Namco include this in a previous draft of the release, those words new franchise, and then later maybe they edited it out?
Well, right now, the press release asks us all to, quote, look forward to more of Elden Ring as an IP, character and other intellectual property, in hopes of expanding beyond the realm of games.
Additionally, a quote from Bandai Namco president and CEO Yasuo Miyakawa states the publisher's intention to, quote, continue our efforts in expanding the brand beyond the game itself and into everyone's daily life, whatever that means. Ooh, come on, Elden Ring Pop-Tarts, make your way to my shelves.
I don't want any of that shit in my daily life at all. Just give me a friendly pot. I just want friendly pot. That's it. That's all I want. So maybe the whole release was edited to remove the implication of another Elden Ring video game? It's easy to imagine a scenario in which publisher Bandai Namco is ready to publish an entire Elden Ring trilogy and an Elden Ring HBO show with George R.R. Martin behind it. This is all based on sales, but From Software might have other designs. We're not sure. It's just, this is all conjecture. We're just guessing.
What are we thinking then in terms of non-video game IP and anime, maybe? Live action? Maybe an Elden Ring Netflix series where it's just two creepy dudes whispering at each other across 8 60-minute episodes for some reason? Who knows? And it's kind of hard to imagine Soulsborne storytelling in any other format than a video game. Maybe they could just tell the story of the lands in between 2 million years ago when they were just putting their first baby hand spiders together. Who's to say, but the future is bright if you like Elden Ring. That much is certain.
Yeah, certainly. Now that the game has launched and already achieved record numbers, we are left to wonder just how high this game will soar. It's unlikely that Elden Ring will go on to be the second best-selling game of all time like Grand Theft Auto 5, since that game's longevity can partially be attributed to the ongoing support of GTA Online. But still, the mere fact that a weird, challenging game made by From Software of all companies could be doing comparable sales to GTA 5 is proof the simulation we're living in is starting to break down.
Unexpected success could be why some game developers and players are actually starting to throw a little shade Elden Ring's way. Ubisoft's Stockholm UX director Ahmed Salama kicked off one of the bigger slap fights on March 3rd, tweeting from a now privated account. Salama posted his frustration with Elden Ring's high review scores, seeing it as evidence that, quote, reviewers don't give a flaming poop about game UX and that, quote, my life is a lie.
Brief aside here, just for context, UX is short for user experience. The term used to describe the overall, user experience involved with using a website, a piece of software, or a game. UI is a part of that. It's in the mix, really. In this case, Salama clearly thinks that the Elden Ring user experience is poor given its trademark Soulsborne method of providing extremely subtle player direction.
Nix's software graphics programmer, Rebecca Fernandez O'Shea, responded, noting that the game's, quote, PC graphics stability and performance issues on PC didn't seem to bother reviewers much either. Guerrilla Games senior quest designer Blake Rebouchet tersely chimed in, noting that reviewers also apparently didn't care about quest design.
Salama then got his plate and went back to the buffet for another helping of salt, tweeting that, quote, Elden Ring's UX is so bad that I can only imagine FromSoft's devs smoking at their desks and using CRT monitors. It's kind of a weird, hyper-specific dunk, but hey, you know what? Whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. As you might expect, given both Elden Ring's and From Software's popularity, these comments didn't go over too well. I mean, usually it has to be a good day for devs to say anything without getting yelled at, much less coming after the king. On top of that, Ahmed Salama currently works for Ubisoft, and that's a company that has grown synonymous with bloated and uninteresting open-world games through the Assassin's Creed and Far Cry series. With a minimal map and minimal in-game UI, Elden Ring clearly took a much different approach to that genre, so it could be read as just sheer bitterness that audiences prefer Elden Ring's approach to Ubisoft's.
To make matters even worse for Salama, their Twitter bio includes credits for Battlefield 2042 and Star Wars Battlefront 2. Whew. Both games that most agree had really confusing and repellent user experiences. Battlefield 2042's beta UI was especially confusing, making it very difficult to tell which options were set where thanks to color inversions.
This is all too fertile ground for a good internet dog pile, as you would imagine. And you better believe those dogs got to piling. This ranged from legitimately amusing dunks on Ubisoft game UI, for real, quote, press X to activate tarnished sense is a good swipe, to more regrettable online harassment, which nobody should be doing, that led both Salama and Rebouchet to private their Twitter accounts.
It is worth noting out of all of this, out of the three developers, that kind of like we're under a rain cloud there. O'Shea's comments are objectively legitimate. The game did have stability and performance issues at launch, which again didn't really influence too many reviewers' impressions of the game. Others' comments about UX and quest design, that's a bit more subjective and can read a little more negative, but yeah, the game stuttered pretty badly on PC, and that's O'Shea's specific line of work, so there you go.
And to O'Shea's credit, she later clarified she's, quote, not saying the game itself is bad, just that she's, quote, kind of bummed that performance and stability, aka the kind of work I do, doesn't affect scores much. O'Shea even managed to find a silver lining in the Elden Ring fan club dogpile, posting that, quote, a bunch of students saw my pinned tweet and have been asking about getting into graphics programming, and that it was nice to answer some genuinely curious people. Well, that's good.
Similar waves of capital D discourse circulated a few days later when a post about the easily missable tutorial at the beginning of Elden Ring went viral, because it is.
It seems to me the discussion around Elden Ring seems to be confusion at how a game that is so implicit about its mechanics and content could get so popular. It seems to fly in the face of design principles that have made previous open world games so popular, like explicit map markers, guided tutorials, big glowing objectives. I mean, that's what made World of Warcraft work so well, Skyrim. These games did really well because they told you exactly what to do and how to do it. And here's Elden Ring blowing up the world by doing the exact opposite. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think Elden Ring's design is better? Do you think it's overrated? What do you guys think?
Do I understand the story in Elden Ring? No. Does anyone? I don't think so. But that's not to say I don't like it. I appreciate all the scraps I'm getting. I feel like the game truly wants me to discover it for myself. I could compare it to another AAA game that I've been playing recently, Dying Light 2, which has a very on-the-nose story that is told through cutscenes, and I could not tell you a single thing that is happening because I just could not make myself care. It's a boring protagonist in a world and situation that I feel like I've already seen. So, I mean, everyone's got their own opinion. I haven't played a lot of FromSoft games. This is probably the most of any I've played, and I'm having fun picking up the scraps. I do feel a little lost at times, but I wouldn't say that reflects poorly on the game.
I agree all the way around. Charlotte, I played Dying Light 2. I played a bunch of open world games, and those stories, even though they're on the nose and they tell you exactly what to do, I don't really care. So it's like, Elden Ring is really obtuse, and I don't really care. Dying Light is really on the nose, and I don't really care. That said, the developers absolutely did have a point about that UX. I am not a FromSoft fan. I played a lot of the FromSoft games and put them down after about 5-6 hours because I just didn't want to deal with it. Elden Ring has a much more approachable gameplay for me as an open world thing, so I feel like I'm exploring, but that UX is terrible. I can't stand it. I don't know where I'm looking. I played 60 hours of the video game, and I'm still trying to figure out what helmet does what and why and which button I should be pressing to read the description. Nah, it's all bad. So I agree. Really I love the game, but that UX is bad for me.
Yeah, we did do co-op last night, and that involved jumping through a series of weird hoops and figuring out what the boundaries are and all that sort of thing. It makes you wonder why you can't just do it from a menu, you know? But that's not immersive enough. I don't know, for me, I tend to see this a little more philosophically about art in general, because people argue that the game is bad because people miss things, or that there's a tutorial, but not everyone who wants to find the tutorial can, and therefore that's bad. I get that argument, but it also assumes that the goal of a game or the worth of a game is laying all of its contents bare for every player regardless. I don't know that that's necessarily a universal good. Games can be intentionally designed knowing that people will miss it. I mean, they playtest this stuff and they see it, and they're like, well, that's just how it goes, and that's the experience we want to create. So some people don't seem to acknowledge that the goal of art isn't to entertain as many people as possible. Sometimes it can be to provide a specific experience, knowing that that'll shake some people off. I remember there were some comments in some reviews for Turning Red that also made some people really angry. And it was critics basically saying that, like, these aspects of the movie might make it alienating for some people, talking about it as though that's a negative against the work, when it can be intentionally made that way. Not everything has to be for everybody. So that's kind of what I feel is the seed of a lot of the discourse around Elden Ring, is people point to it as like it's a gotcha. Ha! We found a way in which it's bad, but that assumes a whole series of values about what it's trying to do that may not necessarily be true. So that's my thing.
I like seeing other people's experiences with the game. I like hearing about it because it's completely different than mine. I saw a video from somebody in like Mega Knight armor, and I was like, this is not the same game that I've been playing. It can't possibly be.
I just respect to Magic, and it's an entirely different video game playing with only Magic, and I feel like a glass cannon versus when I ran it the whole thing melee. So but again, like Lawrence said, that doesn't make the game bad. It just makes the game different. And if you like it and can stand it, then you'll play the game. And I have. While the internet's nerds continue to stumble around debates between commercial and fine art, yet again seems the real final boss is capitalism. Following the launch of Elden Ring, the Gamer ran an article noting that From Software doesn't have the best employee ratings on Career Connection. It's a Japanese site where employees can leave ratings for their employers.
The company currently has a 2.6 out of 5 rating based on 21 reports, which individually note the low pay, high workload, and lack of accommodation for pregnancy and childcare and female employees. The problem is the Gamer doesn't note that many of these reviews are up to 10 years old, and there's only 20 of them, which seems small given the size of From Software. The exact same headlines, in fact, circulated after the launch of Dark Souls 3 5 years ago.
We're not suggesting that From Software is without issue, of course, just that as games and their associated companies climb the SEO ranks on Google, suddenly they start to get a lot more scrutiny from the diligent watchdogs of the internet blocking from home in their sweatpants. That said, raising awareness of pregnancy and childcare stuff, I think, net positive.
Hopefully that's raising enough awareness, and they'll change it more once they see it again circulating in the news. From Software is clearly wearing their outdoor pants today, though, as they've issued a major patch for the game, rebalancing tons of skills and even adding new NPC quest phases and other content. The map can even record the name and location of NPCs now. Whoa! Providing an uncharacteristic in-game tool to locate the game content. Well, finally.
Bad news for everybody that was hoarfrost stomping through the game, though. The damage has been decreased and the cast time increased. That was apparently a really operative skill for speedruns, too. It's obliterated the speedrunning meta at a drop. Souls speedrunner Distortion2 sagged about it on Twitter.
This patch is unique for From Software, though, in that it actually adds content to the game, both a completely new NPC named Jarbairn, and new quest phases for Dilo, Sniffily Lou, Kenneth Haight, and Gatekeeper Gostok.
FromSoft has been diligent with post-release patches in the past, but those largely fixed existing issues and rebalanced game weapons and abilities. Adding content in this manner could imply that From Software is treating this as a service-based game, and certainly the sales numbers it's experienced so far would justify that approach. It could also simply be that the development team had some content on deck that wasn't quite ready to be included in the shipped game or day one patch.
Yeah, I should disclaim, I'm mostly working off of memory and claiming that From Software doesn't really patch content into their Soulsborne games after launch. Could be very wrong about that. Somebody's probably already bashed out a very angry comment. Thank you for your very very kind correction. Always appreciate it. It's a neat idea though. If they continue to develop for Elden Ring, which might make it kind of a muddy question about they're doing a sequel, who knows? If Elden Ring has hit that critical level of sales, it justifies ongoing support and development. That's a good thing, right? Would somebody complain about that? More Elden Ring stuff? That'd be cool. The map is so big that From Software could easily patch in new content over the course of the coming years, which would then feed into longer term sales like we've seen with games like Grand Theft Auto 5 and The Witcher 3. Those just sold and sold and sold forever because post-launch support was there.
Just as long as they don't hit us with a Ubisoft-style microtransaction. So, you know, oh, we noticed you died on this boss 4 times. Do you want to spend some maiden coin? I don't know, 15 or 20 on this invincible suit of armor?
You know what? Actually, we'd like to thank a few patrons for loading us up with Maiden Coin. Dreskel, Guthrie Leith, Christopher Glavin, Crabfoam, and Aaron. Hey, thanks a lot.
I got a few more for you, Bruce. James, Bowser, Sean McLaughlin, Matt, Albert Cullum, and Loveless. You're all our maidens. Thank you for filling our flasks.
And hey, thank you, dear viewer, for watching our gaming news. If you liked it, remember to subscribe. And hey, recommend us to a friend the next time you guys have an awkward pause. It'll fill the silence real nice. Lovely weather today, though. I mean, primo shit.